So today I'm going to make a quick video of how to do a thermostat replacement in a 2009 Pontiac G8 with the 3.6 V6. Now, the thermostat is located in the very back of the engine, which is way back down there. They say that you are supposed to lower the subframe to lower the engine down a little bit, or to lower the subframe down and hold the engine up. I don't know. I wasn't about to do that. I knew there had to be a different way of doing it, and so I did it. So I'm going to show you guys real quick on how to do it. Obviously you can see I have the upper intake manifold already off. I will get to that here in a second, but the first thing you want to do is you want to drain the coolant. So you come down here and you got the lower radiator hose, which goes to this metal pipe. And this metal pipe goes all the way back, runs all the way along down the side of the passenger side of the engine, and actually bolts to part of the thermostat housing. So once you get this spring clamp off, pull this hose off, twist it or whatnot to break it loose and catch all your coolant. There's a bracket right here that there's a stud mounted to the side of the engine here, and there's a 13 millimeter nut you got to take off in order to get this to move free, because you're going to want this to move free to get it off. At least that's what I did. So first and foremost is what you do. Now to get the intake off, let me show you. So this is basically how the intake sits. Well, not put together, but you get it. So it goes right here, and then this part goes to the air box. You got a tube, you got a hose you want to pull off right here. These hose clamps are a 7 millimeter bolt to loosen those up. So once you get that loose, that hose off, this whole piece comes right off. You could probably do that first to gain access a little easier to the lower radiator hose. And then you've got your throttle body right here, and you want to disconnect that, which GM likes to use these little locking tabs. So you just push that middle portion down. Can't really get it good, but you want to push that middle gray piece down, and then this slides back, which will let you push this black tab down, which will release that middle tab right at the top right there. You just pull that off. So once that's all done, this is that hose that I disconnected from the intake tube. So once that's all off, then you can go to the manifold, and this little guy right here, you'll see, plugs into the side of the manifold right there, which you want to do. And then you've got crankcase breather hoses. Those pull off. They kind of go in like so. They go in all the way, and you know, they go pretty far back. I just use a flathead screwdriver and just kind of pry them off little by little. You want to do that with both sides. You want to be careful not to break it, because I'm sure it's quite expensive. And then this piece right here locks onto a little nipple that's on the back portion, located towards the rear part of the valve cover on the passenger side. And to undo it, you've got like this little, I don't know if you can see, but there's like a little springy locking ring that you just pull back, and then you just twist and lift off. Don't pull on it too hard, because these things will break real easy, especially if they're old. They're probably pretty brittle. So once you get that hose off, you've got these bolts right here, obviously, that hold the intake manifold. You've got one right there. You've got those four, and then you've got just this one right here. See, there's a hole all the way down. There's no bolt there, and there's no bolt there. Once you get all those bolts out, you want to unplug this connector here to this sensor. And then right here, there's a bracket held on by a 10mm bolt, which that bracket holds. This is a bracket. I disconnected the plug-in right here, which you could probably leave connected. I've never done this job before, so I went and just disconnected it, so I don't have to worry about it. So that's the bracket that goes on the side of the intake. And then here's that connector for the very back sensor. So once you have all that disconnected, the intake manifold is going to lift right off the top of the engine. And as soon as you do that, it's always good to stuff some paper towels in the intake ports, because you definitely don't want anything falling in there and go missing, and it'd just be bad. Okay, so you've got the manifold off. So next, what you want to do is up here. Let me see if I can show you. To get this thermostat housing off, it's a real pain. But if you loosen enough stuff, let me show you here. So right here is, there's a harness that's in the back of the engine. And as you can see, there's a mount right there. That's on the passenger side. And there's going to be another one somewhere. I think you can kind of see it right there, yeah. Held on by 2 bolts. They're both 15mm. They are these bolts right here. You're going to have one on each side. You're going to want to take these off to let this harness move around. I also cut, you got this like plastic tray on the passenger side here on the valve cover that they usually wrap tape around to kind of keep it held in. I cut the back one here and also right there, just so I get a little more movement out of that harness. So you definitely want to do that. So once you have those bolts out and cut the tape there, be careful. You don't want to cut any wiring inside that loom. So then next is, these are heater core hoses. And the parts that go in here are rubber. And then they go in down here and they're connected to metal. And I'll show you those. So this is here's the line I was showing you. So this basically sits like that. These go into those heater core ports I was showing you. It's pretty simple to know that this is the right side, that's the left side. It'd be pretty hard to get these backwards, but I guess it could happen. So this whole piece here is bolted to thermostat housing. And you've got a bracket right there, which uses, I believe it's like a 14 or 15mm bolt to get that off. So you're just gonna have to fill with your fingers until you find that bolt, and then remove it. I used a flex head wrench. Gear Wrench makes some really good flex head wrenches that are relatively cheaper. But anyways, so then you've got these two right here. There's 2 10mm bolts. This piece here bolts to the back part of the thermostat housing, which is this guy right here. So they go in right here. And there's 2 rubber seals you want to make sure get replaced. I went and put new ones on right there. Okay, so once you get those 2 bolts out and you undo those hoses from the heater core and you undo that bolt, you're going to have to finagle this thing out. It was kind of a magic trick to get it out because they run a wire harness attached to the back of the engine right there. It runs down to the transmission, and these lines run in between the engine and that harness. So just be careful. You can get it out. It's just you're gonna have to kind of move it around, and you get it figured out. So once you get that piece off, now it's time to go underneath the car. And go underneath the car here. Unfortunately, it'd be a lot easier with a lift, but not everybody's got a lift. So remember that metal line I was showing you? It runs all the way back here. All right. So this part here actually bolts in to the right side portion of the thermostat housing. You got a 13 millimeter bolt right there that you pull out, and then you can kind of just wiggle this thing and just kind of pry it out. I stuck a flathead screwdriver in between right here and the thermostat housing, and it actually popped out pretty easy. Make sure you replace that rubber O-ring, just because you don't have to go back in this thing twice. Good to cover your bases. So once you get that bolt out, this thing's going to be pretty loose because you got that bolt out, and then you got that 13 millimeter nut I was talking about earlier off that bracket. So now it's time to go back up top. Now to get the thermostat housing off, you've got these three 10 millimeter bolts that are two bolts are the same length. There's another bolt, there's a third bolt that is longer, so you just want to pay attention. You can kind of tell how the height of those. So the two bolts closest to me are the same length. It's this back one right here, that's the longer one. Just you can see the elevated portion right there. So just make sure that you have those bolts in the right order when you go to install it. So I've already put the new thermostat in. I went to CarQuest to get thermostat, and that part number is right here. This is CarQuest part number for the thermostat. Now the way that these thermostats go in, they supply you with a pretty stout cardboard tube that comes with the thermostat. And what you do is this actually slides over. Let me get the slide over. So it slides over like that. And what you do is you can see how you got a notch right, let's see, a notch right there, and there's also another one right there. So when you take this, you push it down and then twist whatever way you want. So you push down and twist, and that rotates these little locking tabs to where this whole thing twists, and then it just pops right out. And see if I got the old thermostat right here so I can show you. So rubber part goes down. So you got these locking tabs right here. Let's see if so you just push it down and then twist either way, and it'll pop out. And do the same thing to go to put it in. Just lay this into the housing, take that cardboard tube, push down to where it'll lock into those two pieces right there. I've already put a little bit of I like to use a little bit of good RTV. It's still kind of tacky, and the stuff I use, I'm kind of proud of this. It's called The Right Stuff by Permatex, and it says 1 minute gasket, which it kind of technically is. I mean, this stuff is great for doing all kinds of gaskets. I like doing a thin coat on some of this stuff just so I know it's not going to leak, and I've never had a problem. So you don't have to use this. I don't know, I feel better doing it. So, you know, get that thermostat housing off. So you're just going to have to feel for these bolts, you know, to get it off. I mean, it's you know, you can't really see back there. I don't know if if you have access to like a little mirror, a little telescopic mirror where you can kind of look back there. But that's, you know, basically how this thing comes off. And just, you know, do it all in reverse order. You know, just make sure everything's tight, and you don't have to go too crazy tight with these bolts just because they're, you know, pretty skinny. Wouldn't be hard to break one of those, but that is a new thermostat, and the reason why we're replacing the thermostat is obviously this thing was overheating. I did a pressure test. There was no leaks, held pressure. I didn't see that there was any head gasket issues or anything like that, so we're going to do the thermostat. And this is how you do it. So just do it all in reverse order, and hopefully this video helps some people. So I don't really do too many of these videos, but I felt like I needed to because there was not a whole lot of clarity on doing this job. So hope this video helps, guys, and good luck with this poor design of an engine.